0 hour, March 11, 2011. 80 miles off the coast of Japan, the Earth fails without warning. A massive slab of crust hundreds of miles long tears free, releasing centuries of locked pressure in a fraction of a second. Almost instantly, shockwaves rush toward the coast. No one is prepared for what comes next. At the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant, operators hear a high metallic shriek, steel twisting, concrete grinding against itself. Then the floor drops, the walls lurch, and the room starts tearing itself apart. Masao Yoshida, the plant manager, is in his office. He is thrown to the floor as ceiling tiles shatter into dust. Heavy filing cabinets rip free from the walls and slide across the room. Down in the basement of Unit 1, the acceleration sensors scream. The shaking surges past the plant's design limits, bending steel and shattering concrete. This is not a regular earthquake. 2 minutes. Inside the reactor cores of Units 1, 2, and 3, the emergency shutdown procedure, the SCRAM protocol, starts automatically. Hydraulic rams fire from the bottom of the reactor vessels, shooting control rods up into the heart of the nuclear fuel. These rods are made of boron carbide, a poison to nuclear fission. The chain reaction is cut instantly. The 4.7 gigawatts of power drop to zero and the turbines wind down. The screaming alarms and the settling dust are the only things left in the control room. A supervisor grips his console, watching the green lights light up on the board, and yells, "Shutdown confirmed." The buildings are cracked, the roads are buckled, and the external power grid has collapsed, cutting the plant off from the outside world. But the safety systems are still working. These men breathe a sigh of relief. They just survived the strongest earthquake in the recorded history of Japan, a massive magnitude 9.0 monster. At least that's what they think. Deep in the bottom of the turbine buildings, the emergency diesel generators roar to life. Massive engines the size of trains, designed for exactly this moment, pumping electricity into the cooling pumps. Water cycles over the hot fuel rods to keep the temperature stable. But this is only the beginning. 20 minutes. Even though the control rods have stopped the fission, the fuel assemblies are still alive. Inside the metal tubes, the uranium byproducts are breaking down and releasing a massive amount of decay heat. Just minutes after shutdown, the cores are generating about 7% of their full power. It sounds small, but it is enough energy to melt steel and boil tons of water in seconds. And it's all trapped inside of a pressure cooker with no outlet. The reactor needs water constantly flowing to strip the heat away. Masao Yoshida checks the monitors. He sees the generators burning fuel and hears the pumps humming. He thinks that the system is holding, but he is completely unaware of the mayhem unfolding outside. The ocean is receding from the shore, and it's about to unleash destruction on the plant. 41 minutes. Aftershocks continue to slam the plant as operators check the perimeter. A worker turns to the shoreline and stops. The ocean has vanished. In its place, the dark, slimy rocks of the seabed. The men can hardly believe what they're seeing. And the black line appears on the horizon. A towering wall of water rushes right at them. It hits the shallow continental shelf. It loses speed, but it gains height, standing 45 feet tall. The seawall protecting the Fukushima plant is only 19 feet high. 51 minutes. At 3:37 p.m., the tsunami hits. A crushing, grinding roar swamps the plant. The seawall is destroyed instantly. The massive wave is a churning mix of mud, cars, shipping containers, and industrial trash. It smashes into the plant with the weight of millions of tons. Vehicles parked outside are thrown into the sides of buildings. The water climbs up the cliffs, surges over the turbine buildings, smashes through heavy steel doors, and pours into the intake shafts. It cascades down the stairwells, heading straight for the basements, the heart of the plant. The electrical gear and the emergency generators are located here. In seconds, the generator rooms are filled from floor to ceiling with seawater. The massive diesel engines choke, sputter, and stop, while the electrical panels short out before going dark. 12 of the 13 generators grind to a halt instantly. The 13th generator is air-cooled and located in Unit 6, high on a hill, too far away to be of any use. The lights go out and the real fight begins. 55 minutes. In the control room, darkness swallows everything. Ventilation dies, the steady thrum of the cooling pumps stop. The control panels, usually flashing red and green, are black. The only light comes from the emergency exit signs and the trembling beams of operators' flashlights. A heavy, terrifying silence falls, broken only by the sound of men breathing and the distant dripping sound of water. The operators stare back at the blank gauges, realizing the truth. They have lost power. A supervisor asks for the backup batteries, but the reply is grim. They have around 8 hours of emergency power, maybe less. But first, you want to hear something kind of scary? The other day I was with a friend and just for fun I searched their name on Google and I immediately found their old address, their phone number, even an email they haven't used in years. I read it to them and they were like, "Wait, how do you know that?" You can pretty much Google anyone or anything and find out all sorts of private information like this. These sites are run by data brokers who collect your personal information, package it up, and sell it to anyone who wants it, and usually scammers and spammers want it. These guys are printing money and it's completely legal in America. Brokers are legally required to remove your info if you ask them to, but they make it super hard to do. Or you can do what I do. Use Aura, the sponsor of this video. Aura identifies data brokers exposing your info and submits opt-out requests on your behalf. Give Aura a few weeks and you'll stop seeing your information on those sketchy sites when you search yourself. Aura will also continuously monitor the dark web and alert me if they find my personal information exposed. They're gonna let me know fast if anyone tries to use this information to access my credit or bank accounts. Plus, they give me up to $5 million in identity theft insurance should the worst-case scenario happen. They also have a world-class VPN that lets me browse and shop safely from any location I choose. Does your current VPN have all those other features too? Probably not. You can go to my link, aura.com/infographics, to try 14 days for free. That'll be enough time for Aura to find which data brokers are selling your information and start submitting opt-out requests on your behalf. They enter a station blackout. Without AC power, the pumps can't run. And without the pumps, the water stops moving. Inside the reactor pressure vessel of Unit 1, the circulation stops. Now every minute matters. 1 hour. Operators scramble to their cars in the parking lot, finding the vehicles that haven't been washed away. They rip batteries out of the hoods and they drag them through the mud and debris up the darkened stairwells. They hook them up to the control panels with alligator clips, begging for a single reading on the reactor water level. A gauge flickers to life and the news is disastrous. The water level in Unit 1 is dropping. The stagnant water is boiling and turning to steam. The pressure inside of the vessel is skyrocketing. They try to activate the isolation condenser, a passive safety system. It's almost like a giant radiator where the steam will rise, turn back into water, and trickle back down without needing pumps. They open the valves manually, and a hiss of steam indicates the pressure is dropping. It works, but not for long. Their training kicks in. They know that you can't cool a reactor too quickly or the metal will become brittle and crack. Following standard procedure, the operators close the valves to throttle the cooling, intending to open them again in a few minutes. However, when they try to reopen them, there is nothing. The DC batteries powering the valve have died. The valves remain shut. The isolation condenser is dead and Unit 1 is isolated. 2 hours. By 4:46 p.m., the heat inside Unit 1 climbs past 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit. The cooling water boils away, the level drops, and the top of the fuel assembly is left exposed in superheated steam. This is the moment the meltdown begins. Inside of the core, the fuel rods start to fail. Their metal cladding overheats, reacts with the steam, and ignites, creating heat instead of shedding it. The metal rapidly oxidizes, ripping oxygen from the water vapor and flooding the reactor vessel with hydrogen gas. At the same time, the reactor releases enormous energy. The core is no longer heating itself only through radioactive decay, it is burning chemically. Temperatures spike toward 4,000 degrees Fahrenheit. The tops of the 12-foot fuel rods emerge from the shrinking water, glowing red. The steam is a dull orange and then turns crimson. Metal tubes balloon and split. Uranium pellets spill out, falling down the channels and fusing into a molten mass. 2 hours, 30 minutes. In the control room, a car battery gauge flickers in the gloom. The needle moves past the red line marked top of active fuel and keeps going. It enters the blank white space on the dial, a point which it was never supposed to reach. A senior engineer watches the needle bounce and then die. Under his breath, he utters a prayer. The core is no longer a reactor, it is a furnace, and it is feeding itself. Inside, the uranium fuel pellets soften. The core collapses as the rods fuse together, blocking any water that might be injected later. Radiation alarms in the control room begin to chirp, then scream. The fuel tubes have broken, and radioactive gases, xenon and krypton, are leaking out. 4 hours. Night has fallen. The plant is pitch black save for the beams of flashlights cutting through the darkness. In Unit 2 and Unit 3, the situation is slightly different but equally desperate. These reactors don't have the isolation condenser. Instead, they have a steam-driven turbine that uses the reactor's own steam to spin a pump. It is a brilliant design that can run without electricity as long as there is battery power to control the valves. In Unit 2, the system is roaring, standing between stability and another meltdown. But the batteries are fading, so operators are scavenging every power source they can find to keep the control circuit alive. But back in Unit 1, the situation is hopeless. The water level is below the top of active fuel, and the core is almost entirely dry. The fuel is melting into a liquid sludge called corium, a radioactive lava of melted uranium and steel. It drips down to the bottom of the reactor pressure vessel, pooling in white-hot puddles, sizzling against the 6-inch thick steel of the vessel floor. Masao Yoshida is in the Emergency Response Center, a bunker-like building on the site, screaming into a phone line to headquarters in Tokyo. He needs power trucks, fire engines to inject water, and batteries. Tokyo is slow, debating rules and worrying about bureaucracy. Yoshida slams the phone down. They are on their own. 8 hours. The pressure inside Unit 1 is reaching critical levels. The steel vessel is bulging, and if it bursts, it'll release a cloud of destruction that will wash over the entire region. They have to vent. Venting is a choice between two bad options. To save the containment vessel from exploding, they must on purpose release radioactive steam into the air. It'll contaminate the countryside and the town of Okuma, but it will save the vessel. It is the only choice. The manual valves are located in the basement. 2 operators volunteer for the mission, putting on full face masks and rain gear. The men grab heavy flashlights and tape their sleeves and pant legs shut. They step into the airlock where the radiation inside is rising, a shine of gamma rays piercing through the steel walls. The heat is suffocating and the air is thick with moisture. They stumble through the debris, navigating the maze of pipes. When they reach the catwalk, the radiation meter jumps to levels that mean certain death in minutes. They strain to turn the wheel to open the valve, but it's jammed. The air pressure needed to assist with the valve is gone. They heave against it, screaming with effort inside of their masks, with sweat stinging their eyes, but it won't budge. Defeated, they stagger back through the knee-deep black water that smells of hot iron and rotting seaweed. 8 hours, 30 minutes. The radiation meters, which normally click, emit one continuous shriek. One of the volunteers' flashlights dies, and in the absolute dark, something alive brushes his calf. Hours later, he'll realize it was a severed 400-volt cable. In the airlock, they collapse, vomiting inside of their face masks until the air vents clog. When they finally tear the masks free, the air tastes of blood and burnt copper. The younger of the two looks at his co-worker, the weight of the situation hitting them. The older man says nothing. He pulls out a cigarette with shaking hands, and in the darkness, the ember is the only light for a moment. Hour 11, March 12th. On the roads outside of the plant, it is total chaos. Thousands of cars are gridlocked and people flee their homes, clutching pets and children. There is no information about the severity of the situation. Local radio stations play calm music and vague warnings. Inside the plant, the situation escalates. Radiation levels are spiking in the control room, so the operators are now wearing their masks at their desks. The air they breathe is scrubbed, but the gamma rays pass right through the walls. In Unit 1, the radioactive lava is moving. It is melted through the steel support plate and it's now eating the bottom of the reactor vessel. The operators are losing the fight for Unit 1, but they don't know that the battle is about to get bigger. 15 hours. At 5:46 a.m., the sun rises over a scene of total devastation. Debris from the tsunami is everywhere. Mud covers the roads. Inside Unit 1, the pressure is critical and the containment vessel is groaning. The Japanese government grasps the size of the disaster and expands the evacuation zone to 6.2 miles. Eventually, there's a breakthrough. A temporary air compressor is dragged to the pipe, and they manage to force enough pressure into the line to crack the vent valve open. A white plume of steam erupts from the stack of Unit 1. But the operators have made a fatal error. The hydrogen gas, that explosive result of the meltdown, doesn't just go out of the stack. Due to the lack of power, backflow valves fail, and the gas leaks out of the vessel and into the service floor. This is the top floor of the reactor building, a large open space with a tin roof. Hydrogen pools there, gathering under the ceiling rafters and mixing with the oxygen in the air. It reaches a concentration of 4%, 8%, then 12%. Becoming a massive fuel-air bomb waiting for a trigger. 24 hours. The first day is over. The men are barely standing. They have not slept or eaten, drinking only bottled water and staring at gauges that barely move. They're preparing to inject seawater, the last resort. This will ruin the reactor forever because the sea salt will eat the metal instantly. Headquarters is still arguing against it, worried about the money. Yoshida ignores them and prepares the lines. But a bigger problem is looming. 25 hours. At 3:36 p.m., a small aftershock rattles the plant. There's a spark. The explosion at Unit 1 is not nuclear but chemical, but the violence is shattering. The entire concrete roof of the reactor building is thrown into the air and crushed. The steel skeleton of the upper floor twists like a pretzel. A shockwave punches outward, shattering windows in the administrative building miles away. On the monitors, operators see smoke clearing, and then they realize the building is a skeleton. The explosion has cut the hoses that they just laid out to inject water and crushed the only generator they managed to get working. The radiation levels outside explode, and highly radioactive debris is scattered across the ground. The dose rate jumps to levels that make the outside environment lethal. The workers are now fighting in a radioactive minefield. 40 hours. March 13th. Unit 1 is destroyed. The danger spreads as Unit 3 becomes the next to fall. This unit runs on special fuel which contains plutonium, making the fuel hotter and the radiation more toxic. The cooling system runs on steam, but it consumes water from the reactor. As the water level drops, the system trips to protect itself and turns off. The operators try to restart it, but they fail. They try to use the steam pump, but it also fails. The pressure in Unit 3 begins to climb, following the same path as Unit 1. But this time it is faster. The fuel starts to melt and hydrogen builds up. Yoshida knows what's coming and screams at the workers to clear the area. The men run for cover, but there is no hiding from a blast this size. 52 hours. March 14th, 11:01 a.m. The explosion at Unit 3 makes the Unit 1 blast look like a firecracker. The hydrogen has detonated deep inside the building, creating a vertical blast that sends a mushroom cloud of black and gray smoke rising thousands of feet into the air. Huge chunks of concrete, some the size of cars, are launched upward, crashing down onto the turbine buildings. Fire trucks buckle under the weight, cutting the water lines that were keeping Unit 2 alive. Unit 2 has been surviving on its steam-driven pump for hours, a feat of engineering strength. But the debris from Unit 3 rips through its cooling lines and the pump stops. Now Unit 2 is melting, but it doesn't explode. The blast punched a hole into the side of Unit 2's building, allowing the hydrogen to vent naturally. Instead of exploding, Unit 2 breaches. The bottom of the vessel gives way and molten fuel punches through steel and concrete. An invisible cloud escapes into the earth and the air. The ground is poisoned, and the sky is about to catch fire. 72 hours. Unit 4 was offline and empty of fuel, so it should have been safe. But the systems are interconnected. The vent pipes from the melting Unit 3 shared a common chimney with Unit 4. As the hydrogen gas from Unit 3 was vented, some of it flowed back into the Unit 4 building, pooling there silently. At 6:14 a.m. on March 15th, Unit 4 explodes. The blast destroys the upper floors, revealing a new terrifying threat. Sitting on the top floor of Unit 4 is a pool of water containing over 15,000 spent fuel assemblies. These are old rods, but they're still hot, and with the roof gone, the water in the pool begins to boil off into the open sky. If the pool runs dry, the metal rods will ignite, and the smoke would lift tons of radioactive material south toward Tokyo. The Prime Minister is told the grim truth. If the Unit 4 pool catches fire, they will have to evacuate Tokyo. That means moving 30 million people. It was a mission of no return, and they had to find volunteers. 96 hours. By March 16th, the radiation levels are so high that human workers cannot approach the buildings. The control rooms are abandoned periodically as doses spike. Yoshida stays, sleeping under his desk in the bunker, chain-smoking, having accepted that he will likely never leave this place. They need to get water into the Unit 4 pool, but the fire trucks can't get close enough due to the radiation. They call in the military. CH-47 Chinook helicopters take off, attaching massive buckets usually used for forest fires to their underbellies. They dip them in the ocean and fly toward the smoking ruins. The pilots fly directly into a plume of radioactive steam with their meters screaming warnings. They have seconds to line up the drop. Tons of seawater fall down into the exposed skeleton of Unit 4. Much of it is blown away by the wind, and some of it turns to steam instantly, but enough hits the pool to drop the temperature. On the ground, the Tokyo Fire Department's specialized squad arrives. Elite firefighters used to chemical attacks. They drive specialized trucks with water cannons, parking as close as they dare. They aim the nozzles high and arc streams of seawater over the wreckage, raining it down into the pools. They are blind firing, unable to see the target and praying that the physics works. The fire was out, but the water was about to become a new unstoppable enemy. Day 7. Power cables are laid from the grid, thick pythons of copper dragged by hand through the radioactive mud. One by one, the pumps are reconnected, and fresh water begins to cycle. The temperatures in the cores begin to drop from 4,000 degrees to 900 degrees and eventually 200. The meltdown stops as the lava cools into a solid glass-like rock at the bottom of the containment vessels. The emergency was over. The consequences were not. Fukushima is under control, but the damage has been done. Exclusion zones were established, littered with ghost towns. Groundwater from the hills continues to flow down toward the sea, passing through the shattered basements of the reactors, touching the melted fuel and becoming radioactive. Every day, 400 tons of water are contaminated. Coolant is pumped into the ground, creating an ice wall, a 1-mile ring of frozen soil around the reactors. It's a desperate solution, but it works. Thousands of steel tanks are built on the site to hold the contaminated water. It'll take another 30 years to clean up the site. Robots will have to cut the melted fuel out gram by gram. Masao Yoshida passed away from cancer in 2013, 2 years after the disaster. He never left the plant during the crisis and is remembered as the man who saved Eastern Japan by disobeying orders. Now go check out places even more contaminated than Chernobyl and Fukushima, or click on this video instead.